Our physical self is connected.
Just when we hear back from Allegheny funds.
Mhm.
I don't remember which place she's going to go.
It's
I
not,
have great address to Lake Monte.
I do too.
yeah, yeah. So, let's keep embracing her. It's going to be a slow process.
It feels bad old.
Sure.
She's lost a lot of weight. She's,
Well, when you're married all those years, it's not like just a hole, it's like an amputation, you know, and you never get over it, but you learn to live with it. And eventually focus on the happy stuff. Huh?
You know, my brother passed away when he was 50. I was 55. Yeah, it was in 2011. And I'll tell you what, for 5 solid years, it took me 5 years to where I could live a normal life without thinking about him, fretting about, you know, him being dead. It took me 5 years.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Now, when I think, I notice when a day goes by, I don't think about him. It's just a little thought, and that's it.
And usually
I'm not sad, I'm not.
it's a happier thing.
There's no timetable.
No,
No, that's very well known. There's no timetable. I mean, I still think my father passed in 97, Groundhog Day. And there are still times I'll be working on a project and I'll reach for the phone and call him because, you know, he's,
That happened to me.
yeah, what kind of screw should I use for this? Yeah. And then you just kind of smile and say, yeah, well, not worry about that now. So, let's sing a little bit here. Get this to work. Joshua 7. That's what we're going to talk about. I think it's important for us to remember and reflect back that Joshua has been given a mandate. The Jews have been given a mandate to go in and fully take over all of the promised land. So, they're supposed to do it as God tells them. The example is Jericho. Jericho, God gave specific instructions. There's this huge fortified city. Let's review for a minute. This huge fortified city has to be taken, or otherwise it's behind you sending out troops to attack you. So God's plan is a parade. Okay, just parade around each day. Just keep going around and parading around. And then the 7th day, you parade around 7 times and blow the trumpets. Walls open up, big chunks fall out, they run in and take the city. So they have success. Word is spreading throughout all of Canaan about the miraculous crossing of the Jordan and about Jericho being taken. And so now they're moving on. It says, verse 1, chapter 7. Right before that, let's back up just a little bit. It says, so the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout the land. Verse 1, chapter 7. This is the but the Israelites acted unfaithfully in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah, took some of them. Them is the idols and the plunder from Jericho. They were told not to. They were told all the precious metals and metal was supposed to be kept for God's use and eventually for the temple that will be built. But they stole some stuff. And they were stealing from who? Yeah, because God said don't do that. See, when God says don't do that, You know what he means?
No.
Don't do that. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Yeah, okay. Even if that looks really good. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. There's a community guilt because of what Achan's done. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth Aven, to the east of Bethel, and told them, go up and spy out of the region. So the men went up and spied out Ai. Then they returned to Joshua. They said, not all the people will have to go up against Ai. Send 2,000 or 3,000 men to take it, and do not weary all the people, for only a few men are there. So about 3,000 men went up, but they were routed by the men of Ai, who killed about 36 of them. They chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. At this, the hearts of the people melted and became like water, the Israelites. They were defeated. They were defeated. Because where did God go? You ever pray the prayer, God, where are you? In your desperation? Well, they're feeling like that. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till evening. The elders of Israel did the same, and sprinkled dust on their heads. And Joshua said, O sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring these people in your mind? See what this sounds like. Something else in the Old Testament previous to this. He says, O sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites, to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. O Lord, what can I say now that Israel has been routed by its enemies? The Canaanites and the other people of the country will hear about this, and they will surround us and wipe us out. Wipe our name from the earth. What then will you do for your own great name? Getting a little testy there with God. But let's pause for a second. What did that sound like? Coming out of Egypt. Why did you bring us out here to die in the desert? We had such great food as slaves in Egypt. No, you didn't. You're spinning it. You brought us out here to die, you know, and more than once they complain like that, you know. Well, God, look what you've done. People are going to think that you're not who you say you are if we perish. They would leverage God as if he had pride that they could work on. And Joshua's no different. He's kind of doing that. Then the Lord said to Joshua, stand up. What are you doing down on your face? Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possessions. That is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they have been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. That's key right there. If you don't obey, if you don't punish the disobedient, as you've been directed to, I'll have nothing to do with you because I'll realize that you prefer evil and deceit to me. That's the God that we sometimes think is kind of, wishy-washy. No, he isn't. He's pretty direct. So he says this, verse 14. In the morning, present yourselves tribe by tribe. The tribe that the Lord shall take shall come forward clan by clan. The clan that the Lord takes or picks shall come forward by family and family. And the family that the Lord selects or takes shall come forward by man. He who is caught with the devoted things will be destroyed by fire, along with all that belongs to him. He has violated the covenant of the Lord and has done a disgraceful thing in Israel. So early the next morning, Joshua had Israel come forward, tribe by tribe. The tribe of Judah was taken. See, taken here means pulled out, selected. Right? The clans of Judah came forward, and he took the Zerahites. And he had the clan of Zerahites come forward by families, and Zimri was taken. Joshua had his family come forward, man by man, and Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was taken. Then Joshua said to Achan, "My son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and give him the praise. Tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me." This is a pretty cool investigation, right? Achan replied, "It is true, I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I have done. When I saw in the plunder the beautiful robe from Babylon, 200 shekels of silver and a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels, I covered them and took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent with the silver underneath." So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in the tent, with the silver underneath. They took the things from the tent and brought them to Joshua and all of Israelites and spread them out before the Lord. Then Joshua, together with all Israel, took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold wedge, his sons and daughters, his cattle, donkey, and sheep, his tent, and all that he had, to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, "Why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today." And Achor means the valley of trouble. That was named that. Then all Israel stoned him, and after they had stoned the rest, they burned them. Over Achan they heaped a large pile of rocks, which remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from his fierce anger. Therefore, that place has been called the Valley of Achor ever since, the Valley of Trouble. And then it goes on, next chapter, they are victorious. So let's talk about this a little bit. I truly discussed it. Achan's sin, if you look back in chapter 6, 17 to 19, that's God telling them not to take anything out of, personally, for their personal bounty, out of Jericho. He specifically lays that out. So Achan is in direct disobedience to a command of God. Very important. So the defeat of Ai is not accomplished this first time around. Why? But they outnumbered the people, the Aites. They outnumbered them drastically. They said, just send 3,000 men. You don't have to send 100,000. Just 3. And the few number in Ai drove them back. How important is morale in a fighting force? Very, very important. Very. And what is morale based on?
Confidence.
Confidence, relationships with others in the youth, and your belief, your principles, your value system, and
Dedication.
yeah, and if your value system is challenged, and if the basis for your value system is a relationship with God, and God draws back because of disobedience, you're pretty much on your own, right? I don't know about you, but I tried that on my own. Well, that's a commandment, right? And so the commands of God are true, and we should obey them. And we're going to talk a little bit about the commands of Christ that parallel this. So, verses 6 through 10. Do you think Joshua has a right to say what he said to God in his lament? Who was in charge? Who did God put in charge? Joshua. When you're in charge, Michael answered this, when you're in charge, who's responsible for what happens below you?
You are.
You are. Absolutely. Absolutely. Whether it's employees or other people, or if you're in charge of a scout troop, or if you're in charge of, our granddaughter Nora likes to say to her older brother, "You're not in charge of me." And here he says, "No, but Mom." Oh, no. Yeah. So, but Mom's kind of responsible if parents are sort of responsible if the kids misbehave. My father used to always say, "Remember who you are, and remember that what you do reflects upon your family, your parents, grandparents, the whole thing." And sometimes the only thing that, especially when you grow up a little bit poor, the only thing you have is a good name to build on. And so a lot of that is happening, and Joshua's lament is honest, but I think he's a bit in shock. Because what has happened right before this? God helped them devastate Jericho.
With very little effort on their part.
Yeah, it's like winning the Super Bowl and then playing one more game and a local high school beat you with only 10 players. And you go, what happened? You're in shock. And in his shock, his humanity comes flying out, doesn't it? And then he even tries to leverage God, like I said a little minute ago. It's like, well, God, if you don't take care of us, and if you don't, where were you when this happened at Ai? And if you don't take care of us, everyone around is going to realize that you're just not who you say you are. That's basically what he's saying. And you're going, well, wait. He's God, you're not. And it's amazing, doesn't it show God's forbearance and his patience?
But he did go to God.
Yes. And he was real with God.
Yes. And
Yeah.
God knew what he was thinking before he said it.
Yeah. And so that's exactly, Carol. That's the other piece of the lesson here in Joshua's lament. God knows where your heart is. And when you put it into words, it helps you identify where you are in your lament or even in your praise. And so then that brings it out and helps you identify it and grow by it, right? And grow with it. So God is patient when we lament or when we give him a hard time, but we should always do it with respect and with honor and say, God, here's my problem. This Sunday we're going to talk about Psalm 119, 33 to 40, which is the Het. It's the Hebrew alphabet, each section of verses. And it talks about trusting in God and the power of God, and then how that is something that we can live in and live by. And so Joshua is almost lamenting the fact that, God, I'm counting on you. We were counting on you. What happened? And so what does God say?
You didn't do what I told you to.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what happened. And God literally answers him. And he tells him what happened. God's response is just the facts. Any of you old enough in here remember Dragnet?
Yeah.
Good Friday? Just the facts, man. Yeah. I always thought he either couldn't act or he was really good at not acting. Pretending, because he was just like he was reading off the wall. But just the facts, he's a detective. Riley was a guy who was a detective on a detective show. Way back. Yeah. I'm sorry, it's not a modern one. But, and he would say, when he investigated, he would say to people, and they would start talking, and like I do, and he'd say, just the facts, man. Well, God is saying, here's the facts. Here's just the facts. Here they are. And this happened, this happened, this happened. And someone, and then God says, now this is what we're going to do. There's fault. And where there is a fault, where there is a failure, a disobedience, then that's sin. Adam and Eve, they disobey. Now, before we get all deep into but we're in the time where, Jesus and the dispensation of the cross and all that. Yeah. Well, Jesus said, obey my commands. In other words, my teachings. And a lot of them were reinforcing Old Testament teachings, the basic truths in Old Testament, the higher level of morality that God had dictated. And he even said to the Pharisees at one point, you made up a rule so you don't have to take care of your parents, but it says in the Decalogue and the Ten Commandments you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to do both if you want to do this other stuff. And so he called upon the Old Testament. We're supposed to obey the commands and the teachings of Christ. That's why we're supposed to study them. So we can't fall into disobedience and then wonder why, where are you, God? Well, I'm still here. I'm waiting for you to obey. I talk a lot about my parents and my mother, but my mother would she would tell you to do something, all three of us. And she would pick, let's say if it was someone who wasn't listening, I won't mention any names. But
that is.
And she would say, go do whatever it was. Go, like feed the dogs. Go, feed the dogs. What? What? What'd you say? I'm not repeating myself. So, what'd she say? In other words, this is what I said. This is how it should be. I'm not going to belabor it. I'm God. You're not. Do what I say, because guess what? I know the past, present, and future all at one time. And I love you, and I'm going to figure this out. I've got it figured out. I have a plan. I have a will. Would you just please follow my will? And if you don't, there are consequences. And I will let you live through your consequences. That's how you learn to obey, right? Okay. The investigation. I've been running my mouth. What do you think of this investigation that they did to find Achan?
God knew all along who it was,
Yeah, God knew who it was.
but they had to go through the process.
Yeah, because he wanted them to know that it could be any of you. None of you are better than Achan, because any of you could have done this. Because this is an example of what you all could be doing, disobeying me. But he just happens to be the one this time. He's going to make an example, right? What else do you think about this investigation, how it's done?
Very systematic.
Very systematic. This is why they're organized in tribes. It is a beautiful thing to read the organizational chart of the Israelites. The tribes, what tribes would camp where in the camp, what ones were responsible to take what down and to carry what when they moved for the tabernacle, etc., and how the Levites were taken care of in a special way because they couldn't work and so they couldn't take care of their flocks, etc. So it's very organized. And when they would say all Israel was brought before the priest or whatever, or the king, it meant a representative from the tribes. It wasn't every human Israelite. It was a representative from the tribes. So it's very well organized. So it's easy to go through the troops. Who was where and when. And you just said, Okay, Judah. And God is telling Joshua, and Joshua is saying, okay, Judah, the rest of you have a seat. The Zerah's group, the Zerahites, the rest of you have a seat. Zimri's clan, the rest of, what if you're Achan? Not hurting, you need Advil. The guy Achan. Huh?
I'll bet he wasn't even.
He's probably standing there thinking, there's 800,000 men here. And then he's going, whoa, just Judah here. 1 out of 12. Uh-oh. By the time they got to Zimri's clan, he's probably saying, oh my goodness. And then what happens when they do select him and Joshua tells him to what? Fess up. That's the phrase that was in my head. You better fess up. My dad used to say that. Fess up. I don't know where he got it, but which means come clean. Tell the truth. And he does. And they go and they find the evidence, right? So he confesses. In your heart of hearts, do you think sometimes that maybe God just said, okay, well, now that you told the truth, it's okay. Once again, no, that's not how my mother operated. She was very biblical looking back on my life. She would say, no, I understand. I'm so sorry. My one sister was really good at this. I'm so sorry. And just get out the huge butter knife and just start buttering on her up. You're a hero, and she said, well, thank you, and I am so glad that you're so sorry, and you're repentant, and you're remorseful, but you're still grounded for 2 months. Oh, I have a date with Billy Bob next week. Well, call Billy Bob. Better yet, I'll call Billy Bob. And why you're grounded, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And in other words, we were never removed from the consequences. We were forgiven. We were reinstated as, okay, everything's okay, but here's the consequences. And you will live out the consequences to the very end. No matter what. Well, I got, look at this going on. I'm going to miss basketball practice. Yeah, you are. You should have thought of that, right? Before you, whatever. Yeah. So, the confession is just that. It's a confession. But it's not an erasure of guilt. Just because someone, in our society, we tend to do that. We tend to say, oh, well, they admitted what they did wrong. Yeah. Right before it was proven. Don't politicians do this a lot? Right before it's proven, they come out and say, well, I have to admit that, it was me that was in the clown suit, chasing the pig down the road, Okay. Well, everyone who's backing them will say, oh, well, look, they're just so embarrassed, that's punishment enough. No. You should be, consequences. So God's operating that way. It's an example for society and all of his family. All of it. And his mini clan, his a little bit of an extended family. All of his donkeys, his goat, every living thing the man owns. It shows you how God has blessed Israel. Because this one man has that many possessions. Even the tent. They stone them to death. And then burn everything and pile rocks over top the ashes. And it says, it's there to this day, from when this was written.
And God didn't demand the bounty from him. He didn't say, that was supposed to be mine, I'll give it back. It was just working with Achan.
Which proves that, well, let me ask, why do you think that what he stole was destroyed with him? Shouldn't have it in the first place.
It's in real harsh for his family.
Yeah. But it proves that God wasn't punishing him because God wanted the silver and the gold and the robes. He wanted, you'll have more than that. We're not just a bunch of vandals who are coming through and just taking everything until we need more, and then we'll take some more. He said, we're here to occupy, and this is going to be our countryside. This is going to be our cities. These are already ours. Do it the way I say. So he didn't want the silver or gold. He wanted obedience.
It said all of Israel stoned them, so everybody, I see that.
That means all of Israel, the phrase, means a representative group of probably
Because I don't know. I'd be
70, 80, 100 people. There were representatives from all of the tribes. Now, historically, the reason for that is because you don't want, let's say, just the Benjamites stoning them. Because then Judah's going to have a gripe against the Benjamites. Okay? So if everyone participates in the stoning representatively, then
Even Judah would have been part of the stoning.
yeah, even their own tribe. Yes.
I have a hard time wrapping my brain around Old Testament punishments and Jesus' forgiveness. Like when the adult
You should. You should.
He said, "You who has never sinned, cast the first stone." So he was forgiving, and in the Old Testament, whole family group.
Okay. Let me see if I can
Is it the time?
repeat the question back to you. You're having trouble with, for example, Jesus saying, "Don't stone the woman caught in adultery." Forgiveness versus God having Achan and his family stoned.
More than once. I mean, that was not, even when they were in the desert, the punishment.
Yeah, the various punishments. Yeah, that God would render unto them. In the Old Testament, he's doing what? He's developing a nation and establishing rules that are ironclad. What happens at the beginning of the church age in Acts when Ananias and Sapphira lie about how much they've given? They're lying to God. They're both struck dead. That's not the average capital gains, capital funds campaign in a church. Give or we'll strike you dead. No, that's truth. See, we're back to the truth. Jesus, when he said, "Do not stone, let ye who are innocent cast the first stone," it was because he knew that it was a ploy to indict Jesus, and that it wasn't a true biblical outrage. And he knew that some of the men standing there most likely had been with her, because she was probably, it's believed, a prostitute. And so he's getting to the heart of the matter. God didn't say, "I want her stoned." The Pharisees said that she ought to be stoned according to God's law. And Jesus saw through all that. So you can't compare one to the other. In Achan's case, God is directly telling them this is the punishment for disobeying. Because they're about to go throughout Canaan. And the Israelites don't learn this lesson very well, because they never do completely conquer the Canaanites. They never do. And it ends up in turmoil and in battles, and the Philistines are always beating up on them and back and forth, even in David's kingdom. So they don't learn the lessons well, and so the consequences of not obeying God to the full continue to haunt them even to this very day.
Well, in the case,
Good question, thank you.
in the case where God punished those who stole from Jericho, that's God doing that.
Mm-hmm.
With the gal that Jesus said, "He who has cast the first," or he is without sin, cast the first stone. It's not God punishing her; it's the people.
But they're using God's
there's a
law,
difference.
supposedly. Supposedly, they say she was caught in adultery.
Yes, but God didn't tell them to do it.
Well, but they're saying this is one of the rules of our faith. And Jesus is saying, okay. He doesn't argue that with him. But usually those who are innocent, like in Achan's case, the innocent are taking the punishment out. They're an instrument of God. But these men standing there aren't innocent. And so Jesus calls them on it. And so you're right, that it's a farce. The woman caught in adultery is a farce. It's a plan. It's a...
When we disobey God, we influence our whole family too,
Yes.
you know? I mean,
You think the rest of Achan's family didn't know he had buried all that gold and silver and, you know? Yeah.
Isn't that why the New Testament was written? Because there were things in the Old Testament that was too harsh?
No.
I mean, maybe I'm not saying this right. Like eye for an eye, tooth for tooth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Now that's nowhere in the New Testament.
Yeah, Jesus talks about justice.
Justice, yeah, but it's not like, okay, you killed my brothers, I'm going to kill your brother. Isn't that what that meant in the Old Testament?
Yeah, but if you read thoroughly, it says that there also were cities of sanctuary. To where if you got to a city, let's say if you had accidentally turned around the corner and knocked somebody over and hit their head on a rock, and their family's going to want to come after you. So if you run to a sanctuary city, as long as you stay in that city, you're safe. And hopefully until they can work out the circumstances. You can send some of your people and say, hey, it was an accident. Let me pay you for, the damages, et cetera, et cetera. So there were ways to work around that. It wasn't as arbitrary as it sounds when you read one passage.
I don't know where I heard that.
Jesus said he came to fulfill
A long time ago.
the heart of the Old Testament and its laws. And he uses several examples. It says, forgive someone 3 times. And so the apostle said, well, how about 7 times? It's like 2.5 times that. We would be really, really righteous. And Jesus said, how about 70 times 7? Which is hyperbole, meaning just keep forgiving. Does that mean you're enabling? So you have to put it in context. He's saying true forgiveness is helping the person with the problem. Because eventually helping hurts. You can help someone so much that they become dependent on that. And so you're hurting them. And so always keep everything in the big context and on and on. Jesus said that a summary of the Old Testament, the law and the prophets, is the Shema, Deuteronomy 6:4. I love the Lord. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God, the Lord your God is one. I love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind. Which means in the Hebrew, with your entire essence. Okay? And then teach it to your children as they go in and they go out. We failed to do that. That's one thing Christ said. And then he said, and love your neighbor as yourself. Then he says, the story of the Good Samaritan. So, because they say, well, who's my neighbor? He said, anyone in need. And to show them that they aren't doing it, but then the hated Samaritans are, he uses the hero in the story as a Samaritan. And the villains are the priest and the Levite that walk on the other side of the road rather than help the guy, because they're self-centered. They don't want to be defiled. So you see that his teachings and commandments are about the heart of the law. What's the true meaning of what God is doing? And what the true meaning of this story is that God says, obey me. Obey me. I'm taking care of you. Just do what I say, and then you will flourish, and then the love between you and I will flow. Don't do what Adam and Eve did. Don't do what your ancestors did. No. And they botch it. Sometimes they do good, sometimes they don't. When God blesses them, they get real decadent. And that pendulum swings back and forth. And I always pictured that pendulum with a big blade on it. A lot of people are getting cut because they don't do what God tells them. You know? I believe it's in the book of Amos. Amos indicts the wealthy, and you could call them the royalty in Israel. He said, "You sit lavishly on ivory beds or thrones, and languish on those ivory beds in your silks," and the words to that effect. And he said, "And then when a poor man comes to borrow, you take his sandals as collateral." And so now he has to go work barefoot to pay it off. How cruel. You don't need his sandals. You probably don't even want them, but you want to punish him for borrowing. In other words, you're missing the entire, God blessed you so that you could take care of your brothers and lift them up and give them money to start a new life, or give them money to buy, cows and bulls and whatever, You're supposed to, we're in this together, he kept telling them. And Amos just comes right at the hierarchy. And of course, then they come back at him too. And then God eventually punishes in a big way. Eventually, Israel gets sent into exile for 70 years, and it's just this tiny piece of them. There's not much left. So, but it's interesting to see how the lessons progress. So, if you want on your handouts, I put this in so as you go through these passages, you can see how this applies to us, because we're out of time. But I did want to say hi to everyone who's watching, especially Becky and Fred, Margaret, anybody, Ted and Nat. Loved it. Before we close up here, see. But a couple things. John 8:31. It says, "To those Jews who believed on him, Jesus said, 'Obey my commands, abide in me, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.'" The truth of a deep relationship with Christ, the truth that obedience brings sanctification and goodness, and you'll be free from the struggles of the world and of sin. And then in John 15, that I'm the vine, you're the branch. Abide in me. Frequently I pray, Lord, show me if I'm abiding and how to do it better. And today I was praying, waiting to go in for my physical therapy, and I was praying, and pretty much said, "Shut up." In a nice, godly way. Yeah. He said, "Be still." I went, "Oop." So I did. I just shut it all down as much as I could. And when I was in on the traction machine, I'm getting taller. But I had time there, 20 minutes, pray. But it was be still, just listen. And towards the end, now I want you to pray for this and for that. See, that's the God that we love and that loves us. That's a God that is there for you every minute, every day, in the middle of the night. He got up twice in the middle of the night, this past night. Just with someone heavy on my mind. And thought, and then the last time, the third time I got up, I think it shocked Kathleen. I was up before the alarm. That has never happened if I wasn't going fishing. So, but God will speak to you like that because He loves you. So keep that in mind as we depart. Any last thoughts? It's good to see all of you here. Bring a friend next time. Bring an enemy if you want, but don't drive in the same car.
Pastor Tom, I just wanted to say something real simple.
Sure, George.
And Nico said this tonight. He was playing games with one of his friends. Well, Nico mentioned something about Jesus on there. And whoever that kid was said, how do you say that?
This isn't in our context.
Yeah,
Our content.
Jesus isn't in our content. And I told him, I said, you know what? Don't ever be afraid to bring up Jesus. I don't care who you're talking
Before the fall. Because you're putting their opinion ahead of mine. Like Noah said when it started to rain. after all that complaining. You and me, God, right? I remember the comedian. Okay. Let's sing, and then we'll pray and be done.